Hey, you, I was thinking about you. And you know what I was thinking? I think it's time for you to soar. Have you ever struggled with feeling like, I know there's more? I know I can do so much more. There's so many things I want to do, but I can't. And it seems like every turn you bump your head or there's a ceiling or something, but you just know something more is on the inside. So today our topic is unleashing and unlocking your inner potential. It's a phrase I used to hate. Oh, you've got lots of potential. It kind of meant to me that I just wasn't meeting standard. But I have grown to understand that people on the outside can often see your brilliance, often see how beautiful, how talented, how creative, how wonderful you are. And they might also see some snags. So, this show is all about getting unstuck. I'm excited about our guest today. Our guest is LaToya Nichelle Bell. LaToya N. Bell is a leadership and image consultant who helps individuals and organizations discover and embrace their unique brilliance. Listen, she focuses on helping folks celebrate what makes them different. Are you somebody that doesn't celebrate yourself very well? Have you been made to feel like your differences are a little bit of a challenge? Well, listen, my guest today, who's been a dear friend since college, go Penn State, is going to come on and talk to us about this and what she does. And what she does is help people with personalized guidance and insight and helps them with a strategic plan on how they can show up as their authentic selves. So, listen, without further ado, listen, I need you in the audience to go ahead and put up some ones if you're excited for our guest to come up. I want to bring to the stage LaToya Bell. So, welcome, LaToya. Great to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You just have so much to share with our listeners, and I can't wait for you to unfold. Just talk to me about just the title, your reaction to the title, the topic, what what made it resonate for you. Just share a few thoughts.
I certainly will. When I first heard the topic, unlocking your potential, unleashing your potential, it reminded me of my early days in leadership and image development consulting and being able to recognize that it is our inner brilliance that is our strategic advantage. And what inspired that for me is an excerpt from a book called A Return to Love: Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson. And I'm going to read it real quick. It's pretty fast here. Let's see. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our own presence automatically liberates others. And for me, that's what it stands for. It's the ability to recognize that it's not just about you being out there being braggadocious and just showing off for the sake of showing off. It's that what you have is your strategic, unique advantage in the world because it's the way that you get to make a difference in the world, but also more importantly in other people's lives, especially in the way that you inspire and encourage other people just by letting your own brilliance show forth.
I love that. It almost feels selfish. The way you're saying it, it just gives such purpose. Like we're living and others are blessed by it, or our light shines on others, and it's almost selfish to hide that. So,
Mm.
how did your personal journey influence your ability to kind of unlock that and unleash it?
Yeah, so for me, I think it is that realization that there were times in my life where I was absolutely different. I was the only one of something in the room, right? And
Mm,
where I used to think it was a liability, it was realizing that I'm actually here for their benefit. And I didn't always have that perspective. It was a coworker actually who had been in a similar life situation but had a totally different perspective than I had, and where I felt like I had to like squeeze and contort myself to fit into these spaces. She was like, "No, they made room for me to be here. They need to know that I'm the asset. I am the gift." And just hearing her say that made me stand up a little bit taller. I'm like, "Yeah, I get these spaces. I get this access. I get these opportunities." And it's about being able to recognize what I bring with me, not that I have to prove that I deserve to be at the table, but that me being here is a gift, and not again in an arrogant way, but just an agreement and alignment with who I truly am authentically. And knowing that sometimes that meant I wasn't always understood or even accepted, but I used to think this was a really harsh phrase when people are like, "Well, I'm not for everybody." And I think people do sometimes say that in kind of a defensive way, but I think there's a truth inside of there that it's like I'm not for everybody, but for those who are looking for my light, for those who need what I have, I'm
Mhm.
the one, right? And knowing that there's going to be a resonance that happens, and as a coach once told me, you shine brightly. Like people see you. And I'm like, I know. They see me. She said, but the difference is some people are going to be drawn to that light. Like, this is exactly what I need. This is who I need to be with. And they want to bask in that light. For some people, they'll be like, oh, she's real shiny. Like, she's real bright. But they're going to be like, but I want to be here. And they're going to put their sunglasses on and they're just going to be in your space and enjoy it and be able to find their own way to be able to shine themselves. And then there's other ones be like, she's way too much for me, and they turn and go the other way. But it's not that you weren't seen, it's not that you weren't heard, but it's that there's only those that you're uniquely, it's like, without getting too woo, light has frequencies, right? And so there's certain frequencies that emit certain colors, and certain things draw different people. But it's just how you draw is from being who you authentically are. It's not about all the stuff outside of you. I teach a workshop where I tell people it's not the tools that facilitate the transformation, because we have all these methodologies and templates and worksheets. As like the tools don't facilitate the transformation, you do. And
Mm.
so, especially as consultants, a lot of times people that I work with are consultants or leaders or other kinds of managers. And then, so they have all these methodologies and they have all their education and they have all the things they bring to the table. I'm like, but everybody can use those. You could Google it. Like, what makes the difference when you come in the room? And so that's what I had to understand. Like, what is the difference when I come in the room that I can make that's going to help transform this situation, transform this individual's perspective in a way that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't here. And so, yeah, the tools don't facilitate transformation. We do, each of us individually.
That's really, really critical. That is so good. And so if it's me that facilitates the transition, um, let's talk about before the transformation, before the transition, before the change, before the unlocking, before the unleashing. What did that feel like for you? You use the word shrink, that we shouldn't shrink, that we shouldn't have to dial back. And I know, personally, as a woman of color and having been in corporate, I found myself code switching and shrinking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even just humanity where we often shrink, but talk to me about what that feels like
Mm-hmm.
before the realization of, wow, there's something great on in the inside of me.
Yeah, it feels like, um, well, there's a few ways. I actually, I'm writing a book about it called The Code Switch. And the code that a lot of us live in prior to this transformation, this transition into owning our shine, as I say, is it's CODE. So covering, overdoing, depreciating, and editing. And so covering, where it's like you try and hide parts of yourself, or you may not tell or disclose certain things about yourself out of fear of, if people knew this about you, you fear you might not be accepted, you might not be acknowledged, you may not get the advancement you're looking for if they knew this thing about you, right? So it's like it may not seem culturally acceptable. Like when I say culturally, I mean like the organization may not accept
Mm-hmm.
that. They may not appreciate that about you, and so you try and cover and hide that part of you, which is different than like sometimes we need discretion where we just choose your moment. But covering is like even when you have a moment, you don't take it, and you stay back. Overdoing, you feel like it's never enough. We often hear that as African American women. It's like you gotta be twice as good, for the same things, so it's that overdoing and that over delivering in order to prove your worth, to prove
Mhm.
your value you bring. Depreciating where even we're afraid of seeming like we're being arrogant, we're afraid of um, being too big for the moment, and so
Mhm.
we'll shrink ourselves down. We'll let ourselves be the butt of the joke. We'll talk ourselves down. Someone gives us a compliment, we're rejecting it. All those things are depreciating. And then editing, where it's just like maybe we're erasing parts of ourselves, we're altering other pieces, but trying to create this perfect avatar or this aspect of us that we think will be, as one of my friends would say, digestible, to make ourselves more digestible. And so that covering, that overdoing, that depreciating, that editing, I did it all. I was and the thing was, I really thought I was just being a good team player. I
Mhm.
didn't realize I was actually minimizing myself and putting myself in this space where I couldn't really shine. Did I have talent? Absolutely. I wouldn't have been there if I didn't. Did I have potential? Absolutely. Or else I wouldn't have kept advancing. But as, oh man, I'm remembering when I first started in my career, 25 years old, out of college, first full time job. And one of the guys there kind of took me under his wing and he told me one day, he just stopped and looked at me. He said, "You're going places." He said, "The problem is, I don't think you're going to know who you are when you get there."
That's profound.
Yeah, I'm still sitting here like shook thinking about
And you really hit on where a lot of people are. And it's unfortunate because sometimes you go into industries where the culture is already set, the mold is already set forth, and you go in green or you go in and you already just are grateful to be there.
it. Mm-hmm.
And so, in order not to almost rock the boat, it's almost like when you were describing uh, your framework with the code, I I see that so much where you are constantly deciding who you're going to be in the moment, so you don't mess up this good thing.
That's right.
And I'm
That's
wondering if any of our listeners have ever had that challenge. If you would just go ahead and type "that's me" in the chat, or "that was me." If any of you have been there, and we're going to talk about, well, what was it that got you to the place where you realized, okay, there's another me that I haven't really let out. Um, can you talk a little bit to that?
absolutely. And I have a big smile on my face because the moment came when the worst that I thought could ever happen in my profession happened. And that was that I got laid off.
Mm.
And I had worked for the company. I actually knew there was a shift coming, but I was like really hopeful that I would make it to my 15-year anniversary so I could say I had worked a solid 15 years
The
there.
plans we make.
I know, right? I was like, please, I just want to get to, 15 years. And it was 15 years in a week that I got the notice that I would be a part of a major layoff at the company. There were
Mm.
over 800 of us that were let go in an effort to streamline our teams and eliminate redundancy in roles and different things. And I actually was excited about it because I wanted to change anyway. I'd been at the same company for 15 years. I was like, this is where I cut my teeth. Is there anything else out there? Like, I was curious, but I sensed I should wait before I just went out on
Mm.
my own gig. And I'm glad I did because there was the beautiful golden handshake that came with that farewell. So I was okay. But on the other side of it came the indignation. It's like I went through a grief cycle for real. Like it was kind of that shock, denial, like I'm, probably inappropriately giddy about getting laid off. But then I went through the indignation of how dare they, and
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
all those things. And I was like, I'm going to get another job. So I said, I'm going to take the summer off and I'm going to get another job. So I got another job and worked there for 3 years. And then they notified me they were not renewing my contract. And it was one of those things where my husband, he said, okay, now that you don't have to be beholden to other people's standards of how you should be, how do you want to show up? Who do you want to
Wow.
be? What do you want to wear? How, what, where would you go now that you're not stuck under somebody else's standards? And that was the turning point for me, was when
Where
he
would you
said,
go? Who would you be? What would you wear now that you're not under somebody else's standards?
yep,
So we end up under other people's standards.
yeah,
In fact, it starts even sooner than our careers.
hmm
For some of
hmm
you, how many of you can admit to how you grew up at home? There was a standard that you struggled with, or that you worked really hard to fit into. If that's you, say that's me. Maybe it was your mom, maybe it was your dad, maybe it was just your culture. And so you go off to school, or you go off, you learn a trade, and you enter the workforce, and you've practiced really hard to be who you might not even be deep down. So life happens for you. You're facing another layoff. And from the outside, a voice that loves you and knows you best says, who would you be? Implying that who you've been isn't who you could be. How did that feel?
It shook me to my core. Again, it was one of those moments, like when you think about your golden thread of time in your life, like it was the man who stood me up and said, "You're going to go places, but I don't know if you're going to know who you are when you get there." And then my husband saying, "Who would you be?" It's like there's one of those that just kind of, I was like, I won't forget this. And it woke me up because I was so loyal to my company. I loved my company. I loved working there. It was a great place to be. And so he would always tell me and make fun of me, like, a little corporate princess. And I'm like, yep, I am. And I'm proud of it. Like, I wasn't mad about it at all. But the identity crisis that ensued after
Hmm.
I was let go let me know I was a little more wrapped up in my own identity with that, not just the job, because I'd had several jobs there, but my identity was wrapped in that culture. And even though I didn't exactly fit the culture, and I did a whole lot of things to contort myself to fit in it, I was so wrapped in it, if that makes any sense at all. It's like I had to struggle to stay in it. I didn't see it as a struggle, but I knew it wasn't just like an easy fit for me. But then when I left it, it was like, who
It's
am I?
like wearing a pair of shoes that are really cute, but they're tight, and you
Yes.
wear them because it completes the look.
Oh, that's
And
so
the
good.
minute you get in safety, you take those shoes off.
Yeah.
For guys, maybe it's the tie, whatever it is that you take off, and you exhale, and you are authentically you.
Yeah.
And when you realize that you've been wearing that corporately,
Yeah.
the energy that it takes to expend and to be not a bad version of yourself, but not the full version of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. You're squished in that box. You're over there moving around too much,
Mhm.
doing too much, just shrinking and contorting and doing all the things. The way I talk about it in the book is that it's like a circus of conformity, and that it is jumping through hoops and trying to spin all the plates and squeeze into that clown car of compliance. Like, it's all the stuff that we do, but it's like we're a performer in this big three-ring act where we're trying to do all these things to just get that approval and that acceptance that we
Wow.
don't even have for ourselves, and that's why we do it.
Hmm. That conformity of compliance, or compliance of conformity, you don't even realize you're contorted until you can release. So, if this is all you've known, and I'm talking to some folks that are like, well, I've built my whole career on this, and I'm starting to realize that there are things that I love to do that I never really get to do. I haven't really tested out. What what does that feel like? Was there fear when you realized, okay, there's more to me than I've been exercising? Was there
Uh-huh.
fear in stretching out on that? What happened next?
It was again that like, oh, like awakening,
Mhm, mhm,
um, curiosity,
mhm,
and I think I was excited. But I'm the kind of person that does like the new, the expansion, the growth, like that kind of
mhm,
stuff. I guess that's why I'm in the profession I'm in, right? Because I like to help other people find that joy in the personal transformation.
mhm,
Because it doesn't feel good all the time, but it's like you can see where it was that call, like you said, somebody who loves me the most could see like there was
mhm,
a misalignment or at least a minimization of who he knew and loved me to be. And so it was for me an invitation. You know, when you get an invitation, it's like it's got your name on it and you look at it all like here's what we're going to do or here's where it's going to be and you're like, "Ooh, how do I get to, how do I get ready for this? Like what do I need to do to be ready for this experience?" And so
mhm,
that's what it was. It was really exploration was
mhm,
what how it felt to me. Intriguing. I think that's the word I've been looking for. Intriguing.
mhm,
To see what would be possible. I was ready for a change. I knew a change was necessary. Um, Layoff, and like I said, a layoff was the worst thing I thought could have ever happened to me, and it actually ended up being the best thing. Like I talk about layoffs being a gift, and so that's my perspective. Though I know other people did not have that perspective. For some people, it's devastating. It
mhm,
wasn't that things were easy all the time. It's just actually after that second layoff, I ended up unemployed for 3 years following that one. So again, this was nothing to do with um, the financial aspect of it, the professional aspect of it. It was all about exploring and expanding who I knew myself to be so that I could be ready for that next opportunity that would come
mhm,
in the traditional professional sense. Um, in between that time, but that 3 years, I did explore like starting my own business. I
mhm,
ended up because we just needed some income work taking a retail job, selling clothes, but that actually
mhm,
gave me experience I wouldn't have had otherwise. I actually can say legitimately that I've helped thousands of women find their style, feel their confidence because those dressing room sessions, it would be like whole sessions in there. I'm like, I really feel like I'm a retail therapist, right? Like I could help people just let people be in tears in there and I could help them overcome that. And so even though it was a retail associate position, I learned to transcend that title into something that would be more meaningful in alignment with who I am. But that's what that question and that invitation did for me is it helped me to step into new possibilities, even though it didn't make sense on paper that someone with a master's degree and all the years of experience I had would now be working retail for $12 an hour and standing on her feet for hours and hours a day, selling
So
clothes.
that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. I believe that some of our listeners may or may not have the luxury of 3 years of unemployment. But many of them are probably experiencing that fear that you talk about, that fear, that trepidation that that happens. And so what I love, and I just kind of it's what is your side hustle? Sometimes you have to find out what you love and you do it by accident. But fear works against you. Fear absolutely works against you because if you just kind of just stay where you are and you stick with what you know. And I'll give you a quick example. When I was laid off the first time in pharmaceutical biotech industry, I went through so many um, layoffs and reorganizations, too many to count. And when I laid off with the golden handshake and I said, I'm going to do something on my own, I allowed the first time fear to strike me. And I did not realize that in me was more than I thought or that I knew. And it took external voices to continuous. It was like I was collecting data. And when I finally looked at the data and say, everybody says that what you do resonates with them and that you impact them, it was years down the road before I listened to those external voices. So what I'm saying is instead of striking out on my own, I struck out on my own and I got scared. And instead of digging around and finding out what I was great at, I went back to what was comfortable and I went back to having to be in the box so that I didn't make waves
Mhm.
and doing what I liked, but it was nowhere near what I loved and I was impassioned about. So, what I want to make sure our viewers are hearing is if you don't have the luxury of the leap of faith that takes you 3 years, let's talk about a side hustle. Let's talk about ways where you can start to figure out what's on the inside and what you're passionate about while you might be bivocational. You
Mhm.
might actually have to keep your job and still be in the box. We're not saying everybody should take the leap, but let's talk about some ideas or solutions that folks might be able to benefit from if
Mhm.
they need to stay at work but still discover their brilliance. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts
Yeah,
about that?
I absolutely do. I think the thing that taught me in that 3 years, because when you look at your professional path, and that's what I call it, a professional path, because my career does not make sense on anybody's ladder, right? So I have a bachelor's degree in food science, another bachelor's degree in ministry, and a master's degree in human resource development with adult learning specialty. That doesn't make sense to anybody except for me. If you know me, you're like, oh, that makes sense, right? And so my career, my professional path started in the food industry, but now I work at a hospital by day. I still have my own business that I'm building and my own consulting that I do. And it's just been such a great convergence of all the things. But the main thing that has helped, and I'm saying this to give some context for what I'm about to say about what to do while you're in the box, because you got to play the game, like, because there are very real things like bills to pay and needs to meet. And that's why I ended
Mhm,
up, as much as I wanted to just make it on my own that first time with my business, it wasn't
mhm,
going to happen. And the pressure to try and do it on my own
mhm,
was making me disingenuous in my business. Like, I started focusing on, like, people became dollar signs instead of truly serving them, because I just
mhm,
needed to serve this many to make this much so I wouldn't have to, so we could keep the lights on, right? And so I didn't like that feeling. And so that's where I decided, okay, I'm going to go. I know I can do retail. I know I have skills. I know I like it. And again, I didn't let the job title dictate how I showed up, though. And that's the difference. And so if you're like, you're there, but you want to expand, you're made for more, what communities can you be a part of? What
mhm,
network could you do? I have awesome story about networking too, and how that shaped my whole path. Um, Networking, different communities that are like-hearted and like-minded, that might be able to be good connections or at least inspiration for you while you're, because you need a place to be able to be all the way you. Like, you need that place of authenticity.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so finding those communities where that's possible is really essential. And then from there, there's also opportunities to volunteer. So are there different organizations that could benefit from your skills? That's a great way to test out your content. I volunteered at a women's shelter. It was a women's program, but I did my workshops at their shelters and at their different places that they had the programming. And I would build it and I would test it in a very safe group, and it would be intimate crowds, and I could refine my message. I could learn what works for people, what doesn't work for people. And so then when it came to, okay, let's add this to my business offerings, the services that I have, it was road tested. Again, same way, working retail, I got to prove some concepts about how I talk with people about their dressing and their style, and all of those little pieces. So it's like sometimes we're looking for the big opportunities or the big leaps, and it's like it's in the small pieces that you can find those opportunities to expand and explore. Like, I keep using that word explore, but I think it is that daring to go beyond what people have. giving you permission to do inside of your job. Because your job's only going to pay you for so what they asked you to do, right? But if you're seeing something beyond what they're asking you to do, then don't wait for them to try and let you do it there. Find a way to do it in other avenues and other channels. There's somebody that needs what you have. That's what I am confident of. And it may not be your ultimate audience, but it's a place to start and then grow from there as you learn and you grow confident in your message and your methods. Then you'll be able to go to different audiences and platforms. Like I said, I started out with women shelters and programs, church programs, community programs, working with nonprofit leaders, different things like that. And it's just been very like incremental and small, but every time I take something with me from it. And then now I'm working with executives and senior leaders and directors inside my day job and then also my own business consulting. So it just grows as you're willing to let it grow, as you're willing to see beyond the titles. We get stuck on titles and like titles and dollars will get you limited so fast that
Mhm.
you will miss yourself in the pursuit of those things.
We talked about in a prior episode having the growth mindset, and that people think that they're growing sometimes because they get promoted or their title changes or the responsibilities change. But really, a growth mindset is I am willing to abandon what I have loved, learned, and lived by my whole life in the evidence of proof that what I might have lived through wasn't the full truth. I am willing to take on new ideals that don't change who I am, but enhance who I am. And that's a growth mindset, is I am open to what's next and what is possible. And to do that, you have to choose to unlearn.
Yeah.
And if I built my identity on everything that I learned and everything that I thought I was, then I can never become who I'm supposed to be. And I could never evolve. So for you, how, having gone through this transformation, how do you stay relevant and continue to evolve in your process?
I believe it is wherever I am, I try and find how to be more. Not
Mm,
not so the emphasis on the word be more, more being, like how do I continue this ongoing journey? I mean, even though I've written this book, Code Switch, I have this beautiful acronym and framework and all the different things, there's still, it's like layers, the proverbial onion,
mhm,
right, that we encounter
mhm,
the more opportunities that I step into. And so for me, lately, it's been paying attention to the restlessness on the inside, right?
mm,
So there's this sense of like stuff starts getting boring,
mhm,
or I start feeling disengaged. I was working
mm,
with one employer and they said they would ask, like I was new to the company and they asked me, they said, and it was just their standard question, is there anything that will make you want to leave, like and seek another company right now?
mhm.
I was like, that's the wrong question. I said, you need to tell HR, whoever wrote that question, that is the wrong question to ask. I said, because if I'm thinking about leaving, I've already left. And they were like, oh, I said, what you need to know is what engages me. And is there anything that's disengaging me to the point where I don't want to be here anymore? Because if you can catch me at the point of engagement and then shifting into disengagement, we could still have a conversation. But if you have got me all the way over here and I'm out like over here, like exploring other opportunities, I've left. Even if I
Mhm,
choose to stay for years, because people do that. They're like, I don't, they disengage, but they call it quiet quitting, I think, where people just kind of stay in place, but they're not really giving what they need to give. And
mhm,
so I pay attention to that though, because I always want to show up as my best. I realize it's my character, it's my reputation on
mhm,
the line. And so because I believe I am a brilliant difference maker, want to make sure I'm giving the people what the best of me that I can give.
mm,
And I can't do that if I'm disengaged. And so when I start feeling restless or I start feeling bored or everything, all of a sudden everything is terrible and difficult and a pain,
mhm,
I look at me like, okay, what's really going on? And I have a check in with my values. So, what are those things that are my non negotiables? Has something shifted
Mhm.
about the work, about the work conditions? I know a lot of people are being asked to come back into the office now, and they're not happy with that because it's not just convenient, it's now become part of their value system. And so, are there things that might be walking that line for you, and it's hard for you because on the inside it's just something that's so core and so personal to you? Does it match your priorities? So maybe when you started the job you were in a certain place. Like for
Mhm.
me, the job I was working 15 years ago, our kids were in elementary school. Well, now they're old and grown and out the house. I don't have the same priorities around that anymore, right? So
Mhm.
as empty nesters, do my priorities support me being where I'm at? And then what are my needs? So what are those very real needs that I may have, and how do I make sure that whatever it is I'm doing matches that in this season of life? So I really do think it's that paying attention to the season and paying attention to like what's going on with you, because the things I value and that are priorities for me now were not 15, 20 years ago. Maybe even, well, let's go back. I mean, COVID did a whole lot to our values,
It did.
our
It did.
priorities. Right? I think we
It
got to
did.
speak what our real values are, but our priorities had to shift, right? Um, in a
And some
space
of
where
us are some of
we're
us are stuck. I'm
right.
gonna if I'm honest, some of us get stuck. We get stuck because the paycheck meets the bills, it meets the needs, the and if folks would really be honest, they've been disengaged for a long time. They're just
Mhm.
showing up. And statistics show that if you're disengaged, then the quality of work is not what it could have been. Um, the amount of time that you really spend putting into it is not the same. And you don't feel validated, you don't feel valued, and you absolutely don't unlock your potential. So I want to speak to the person that might admit, I've been kind of disengaged. I've been not comfortable. I haven't been checking in with me. I haven't looked at what my values are. What I'm doing doesn't really align with what I need. And I think I'm stuck. If that's you and you're willing to admit it, just type stuck in the comments. Because the beauty is, once you admit it, there's a level of pressure that comes out just because you said it. Like, wait a minute, I'm stuck. And if you're stuck, then that means there's got to be more. You wouldn't be stuck if there wasn't more on the inside of you. It's like your inner you is screaming to come out, and you keep putting it in the box because the bills need to be paid. But I want to challenge you and encourage you to think outside of your box. And I will quickly share when I was in a box and how I became a global trainer. And I didn't go in there looking to be a global trainer, but what I found was there was a disconnect and something that rubbed me the wrong way. There was a disconnect between what was expected from leadership and what was understood by those who needed to do the work. And what I found was I could interpret what leadership was saying, and I could share that with those who needed to do the work. And I became known as the go-to trainer. I became known as someone who could unlock the mysteries and teach people. And it wasn't for years that I actually walked into that, but I was in a safe space. I was in the box with my hand outside of the box. So I wonder if you watching, you have something that you could do. LaToya already said volunteer. Go to some of the events that your organization has. Volunteer your time, network. Just talk and find your tribe. Because what happens is, LaToya, you use the word inspired. You can be inspired and realize that there's something that you could do all day,
Mhm.
whether you got paid for it or not, and not be exhausted. And what you'll start to do is you'll start to hone your inner brilliance. You'll start to allow that inner potential to get some breath, to begin to breathe, and ultimately you'll become unstuck.
Yes.
I just want to know, LaToya, if you could just speak to the person that might be stuck right now. Um, they think they're in success, but today's conversation might have woken them up a little bit. Maybe they're awake now and like, well, maybe there is more. What would you say to that person embarking on the journey to their inner brilliance?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it really well. The fact that you feel stuck means you want more, and
Mm-hmm.
that means there is more. As a dear friend used to always say, as long as there's breath in your body, there is hope. And you don't have to stay inside the confines of a job position, a job title. There, I've had the great fortune of being able to expand my influence through my roles, just like Katina said, in different ways. And, how can you make some connections inside of the organization you're in? I got to do some amazing work with an organization because of connections that I had that had nothing to do with the work I was asked to do with them, but it just naturally flowed into other conversations. And I got to be of service to this department in ways that go way beyond my job description. And it's teaching me a lot. And so that the education I'm getting from that has been invaluable. And so that stuckness, don't how I'm sensing it is like thinking less of yourself because you're stuck, but that's because you've perhaps decided that your inability to move beyond that job title means that you don't have more value to bring, and you absolutely do, whether it's inside that organization by reinventing your role, expanding your contributions, or it's finding another opportunity to have the courage to do that. We talked a lot about fear, and a lot of times I've heard people say, that the the opposite of fear is courage, or that the opposite of courage no the opposite of courage is comfort. And I'm going to challenge that a bit, because yes, we can be stuck because we've gotten too comfortable, but the challenge with that is that when we get into fear, if we don't move out of that stuckness, we end up in a space of conformity. And that's what the danger is that you really start to reshape yourself or continue to subscribe to, like I said before, that covering, that overdoing, the depreciating and editing of yourself, to the point where you will just continue to stay in that cycle and continue that circus of conformity. And so if you really want to get to a space of being able to move, it's going to take courage. It's not about um, shooing away the fear, but it's about the courage to stand tall in who you are and dare to discover who you really are. And your stuckness is telling you about who you really are, but do you know how to listen to what it's saying to you? And so that's the part that I hope that you would do, is just like my husband asked me that question, like my coworker dared me way before the wake up call he gave me around who would you be if there were no limits on you? And start with that question, because that's the place where your courage begins. That's when you step out of conformity and into courage, step by step, opportunity by opportunity, and be able to take that stuckness and turn it into a new form of success for yourself, regardless of what the job title is and what other people have to think about it. Does it align with who you are, your values, priorities, and needs right now in this chapter of your life?
Beautiful. You said success, and you've challenged us. What does success look like to you now, as opposed to what it did before you embarked on this journey?
Success now looks like the freedom to be.
Mm,
It's a day by day thing where just yesterday, one of the things I focus on is like catch myself doing good things and just appreciating the good that I do, and not even drawing anybody else's attention to it, but just noticing the difference I was making in every interaction I had in my day. And it was so cool. And so, like, I slept real good being able to see the seeds that were planted, or maybe they were watered, or maybe someone's like, you really taught me something that shifted the whole way I work. And I
mm,
got to hear that. And I didn't fish for compliments. I didn't do anything extra. It was like, don't be extra. Don't even hint that you're looking for feedback or input. Just be and see what happens. And to me, that is success. Like, I can do that every day, right? And when I think about the ability to get results, because reality is in business, they want you to get results. They're like, you're fabulous. We need something produced. Right.
Yes,
So when
absolutely.
I look at that, my success, and like you, I have become the go to person at my day job. And one of the things that actually made me excited but kind of sad on the inside was my last performance review. They were like, "You're great. You're exceeding expectations." Someone commented, "LaToya is the best." And I was flattered. And then I went home and I was so sad all the way home. And I was like, "What am I sad about?" I'm sad about I was sad about the fact that I'm like, I can't be the best unless everybody else is theirs. And so for me, success looks like helping other people be their best. And that's really what fuels me now, is to say, me being my best has got to help you be your best. And I can't force that on people, but I can encourage them. I can teach them. I can use the tools and the methodologies and all the education and all the experience I have and bring that to the table and let them decide what they need to be able to deliver the results they're accountable for. My
Hmm.
results come through other people in the role that I have right now. And so my success is helping them to be the leader, the the manager, the executive, whatever they are, whatever role they have, that they do it the best they can. I worked with some personal care attendants the other day, and so it's like it's not just about levels. I mean, anybody, whatever they're doing, that they can be their best at doing it, and that I'm helping them to recognize their next opportunities and supporting them in getting there. And so, for me, success is about expansion beyond myself, which is exactly what that quote from that I read earlier was about, that when I shine, I empower others to do the same.
That's fantastic. So, LaToya, you are dropping so many nuggets, and I can just feel the excitement on the line with the viewers. Is there a way where people can find you and work with you if they want to?
Absolutely. So my website is www.latoyabell.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook as LaToya N Bell, on both of those. And then let's just focus on the website though, because I have a special experience that I want to invite you all to, which is the Brilliant Difference Maker Clarity Session. And this is a 30-minute personalized session that's designed to help professionals gain clarity on their unique strengths and how to leverage them for career advancement. And who it's for. So, this is for exactly the people we were talking about, professionals that feel stuck, uncertain of their next steps, or looking for a way to realize your strengths and align them with your professional or business or personal aspirations. So here's what you'll get in this session. You'll get a deep dive into your core strengths and how they differentiate you in your field. You'll get practical insights on how to leverage your strengths for growth and advancement. And you'll get a personalized, brilliant difference maker declaration that highlights your unique value and serves as a guide for your next steps. And this I've done this work with lots of individuals and with teams, and the thing that everyone always comes away with is exactly that, the clarity that helps to break through stagnation, or gives you that permission slip, so to speak, to go find out how to be more. And by identifying your unique brilliance, you're able to confidently make decisions, take actions that align with your values, your priorities, and what you need out of your career, out of your job, out of your relationships. And so you have a special offer because you're here watching. And so this session is normally available for 147, but with code SOAR, SOAR, you will be able to get it for 97. So this is a limited time offer. So make sure that you hop on it, get on over there and use www.latoyabell.com to book your session and use that code SOAR to claim your special rate.
Fantastic. I am so excited for all that you have going on, and I'm so grateful for you sharing with the audience all of the nuggets, all of the inspiration, all of the tips and tools and encouragement from your journey. I've loved to watch your journey. I'm excited to see how brilliant you are, how great you shine. And I just want to thank you for coming on to our show. And we look forward to the next time that we get to hang out together. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. LaToya shared so many great tips for how to unleash and unlock your inner potential. Listen, I'm looking forward to the next time we come together. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, and remember, I am your host, Coach Katina, and I have been thinking about you because you know what? I think it's time for you to soar.